Is moving abroad with the Foreign Service free? Yes. Are there also major drawbacks that led me to move abroad on my own? Also, yes. So come with me as I show you some insight into how I moved abroad as a normal person and compare that to how I would have moved abroad with government. And at the end, I'll tell you why exactly I chose to move abroad on my own. Now, the first step in the Olympic level decathlon that is moving abroad is housing. And actually, State Department, Foreign Service folks don't have that much of a leg up on us normies because there's a military related law where military members, if they get mobilized, they legally can get out of their lease with minimal problems. Foreign Service, that is not the case. There is a clause that you can put in, but that is not, that's only if you put in the clause and if the landlord honors it and all that kind of thing. All right, the next hurdle is paperwork, and I will not go into depth in this. I did previous videos. You can look at my journey to get my visa for Spain. But the thing to know about diplomats is they still have to get their own visa. So they get help from the US government in that they get paperwork that says they can expedite the process, and usually governments have a streamlined process for diplomatic visas, but they also have to do a whole other mountain of paperwork to get everything in order on the US government side. So I can guarantee you that just about no matter how much paperwork you are doing as a normal person for a visa, that Foreign Service folks are doing more of it, and it's coming down sometimes to an uncomfortably last minute in terms of getting all the approvals that they need. So if you're not in the DC area already when you get your next posting, so if you're already abroad at an embassy somewhere, then you actually have to come home to the US in between tours. But I chose to do my own little fake home leave, and I'll show you about it here. So in the Foreign Service, between posts, you have to do what's called a home leave, where you have to spend usually about a month somewhere in the United States. Rumor is this is because they don't want you to forget about the United States or forget your roots, forget what it's like here. Although I'm sure many people come here and they immediately want to leave back to their next post. In fact, some people find it like a financial burden if you have a big family and you have to find somewhere to spend a month with all your family because they don't pay for this home leave. But anyway, I am spending my little fake home leave, as I'm calling it, in this cute beach town in Delaware, where I've been coming for my whole life. And it's a beautiful May day, and I feel so lucky to be here. There was something nostalgic about being on the way home from the beach, driving through Delaware and Maryland, these fields and forests, and just knowing that I'm not going to be doing this all the time anymore like I used to. So I am paying for only this one checked bag for my move to Spain. I probably could do more, but I mean, cost and traveling by myself with more than one checked bag seems a little bit crazy. But if I were still with the State Department and they were sending me abroad, I would probably get 2 of these checked bags for free, in addition to all of the home goods that I would be able to ship for free that would go on a boat or go on a plane in separate shipments. That would also be totally covered by the government. And something that diplomats and non-diplomats alike have to deal with when moving abroad is the whole airport process. When I first got to the airport, I went to the counter to check in, and the woman at the counter took one look at me and my check bag and said, "That's not gonna fit," like in a kind of rude way. And and then she like pointed at the thing you have to fit your luggage into, right, in order for it to carry on. And I put it in and I pushed it down, and it fit perfectly. She said nothing. I took my luggage out. She gave me like the baggage tag or whatever and went on my way. It would have been really funny if I hadn't been having all the feels about moving abroad at that exact moment. And if you're planning to move abroad, you'll just be prepared for having lots of feelings. I wore my sunglasses so that hopefully it wasn't obvious that I was having a moment. I was actually having many moments. But luckily, there were a lot of distractions when I got to the airport. First of all, there was this law enforcement officer ceremony thing going on. And I later found out, sadly, that it was for the family of a fallen police officer. I I didn't know they did this, but it was a really, really nice gesture for the family. There was also a lot of commemorative items and things related to the US's 250th anniversary of our independence, including this George Washington Lego that I was not the only one taking a picture of. And I also discovered for the first time that I can recall that there is a Smithsonian shop inside Reagan National Airport. So if you're going through this airport anytime soon, I highly recommend checking it out. It was probably the best store I've ever seen in an airport anywhere. And something that I think not everyone knows is that Foreign Service officers, actually all government employees, are supposed to fly American, meaning they're supposed to fly with only US carriers. And I just happen to be taking American Airlines for this trip. But this can get really complicated really easily. So there are something like 150 countries where the US has embassies or consulates, and you know that the US doesn't have carriers that fly to all of those places, which means you can be taking very many flights, and sometimes to not even go that far. Like, I've heard of people having to take 3-leg flights just to get to certain parts of Europe. So don't assume that just because someone is flying to their post as a Foreign Service officer, that does not mean that they are flying in luxury or directly by any means. So once you've survived the flight, however long it is, as a Foreign Service officer, you get to go through a quicker line with your diplomatic passport. And then, especially when you first arrive at a post, usually if it's a big enough post, you will have somebody come pick you up. I had to take the train all by myself with all of my luggage, but look at this. I was just trying to fill my luggage, and look at this absolutely beautiful Roman-esque looking ruins that we just happen to be, going past on the train. So really don't feel bad for me. So ultimately, why I didn't try harder to get the US government, the Foreign Service, to send me abroad instead of going on my own is that when you join the Foreign Service, you have to sign something agreeing to be worldwide available, i.e. that you can be sent and will agree to go to any of those approximately 150 countries around the world. And many of these places are not safe, and they may not be conducive to you living a healthy life. I know people who have gotten ill or injured because of where they were sent with the Foreign Service, and that's not even including the several people throughout the Foreign Service's history who have actually been killed in the line of duty abroad working as diplomats. And so, with the odds being what they are, it would be extraordinarily unlikely that I would get to go to a creme de la creme post like Spain. And this was my dream to come here. But given all that, I might have still considered going the Foreign Service route if it weren't for what is going on now politically in the US. The current administration is not one that I can represent abroad. It's not something that I can explain or defend. And I'm not alone. I've seen numbers as many as 150,000 of us federal employees took the buyout, the fork, as they called it, and left the government. And actually, I am coming up on my 1-year anniversary of having left the government, what was basically my dream job. And so I'll be doing a whole deep dive video. Look out for that coming up on in terms of how I felt, how it happened, how I made the decision, and how I feel about that decision a whole year later. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned to follow more of my adventures in Spain post the diplomatic life.